We took a 10-day group tour to northern India in February 2011, visiting what's known as the Golden Triangle of Delhi, Agra and Jaipur, plus Ranthambore National Park and Mandawa. We started off in Delhi and with a visit to this extensive site of ancient Islamic monuments and buildings. There are a large number of structures in varying states of repair. And lovely ornate carvings on archways and pillars. But the site is dominated by the Qutb Minar. At over 72 metres, it's the world's tallest brick minaret. The following morning, we started off with a visit to this very impressive old mosque. Margaret's hunchback appearance is due to her backpack under the coverall that all the ladies were given to wear. At the site of Mahatma Gandhi's cremation on the 31st of January 1948 is a very plain marble platform and eternal flame in the centre of a large green park. It's very tranquil and well looked after, a real oasis in an otherwise noisy and dirty city. India Gate is one of many Delhi buildings designed by Sir Edwin Lutyens. As with all tourist sites, the approaches were heaving with hawkers selling all sorts of food, drink and souvenirs. From Delhi, we went by coach to Agra and were up early the next morning to visit the main attraction there. There's a long entranceway leading to a very impressive gatehouse, through which you get your first view of the Taj Mahal itself. The weather started off rather hazy, but cleared up nicely during our visit. We were very pleasantly surprised that it wasn't particularly crowded. It lived up to our expectations and was certainly a highlight of the trip. Next, we squeezed in a semi-precious stone cutting demonstration and shopping opportunity before moving on to Agra Fort. It's a huge fort, more like a walled city. Our guide throughout this trip really wasn't very good. He didn't tell us much during our long coach journeys, and at sites like this fort, he kept gathering us all together every few minutes, so we spent a lot of time waiting around for the group to congregate, and had less time available to explore on our own. From the fort, there's a lovely view of the Taj Mahal in the distance. 20 miles outside Agra lies the abandoned city of Fatehpur Sikri. It took 15 years to build, but was then only occupied for 14 years, before being abandoned, it is thought, because of a lack of water to support the growing population. For a welcome break from coach travel, we took a train from this station not far from Agra, south to Ranthambore. Large crowds seemed to be settled in for long waits on the platforms, but our train was on time and not too busy. Very early the next morning, we set off on a game drive in one of these cantors, mainly in the hope of seeing a tiger. Ranthambore National Park covers an area of 150 square miles and is thought to have a population of between 30 and 40 tigers. It used to be a hunting park for Maharajas, royalty and the like, and you can still see some of the old lodges. With only one tiger for every 4 square miles, and much of the park covered in dense vegetation, it's far from guaranteed that you'll actually get to see one. After a good couple of hours of driving around, we'd pretty much given up hope of seeing a tiger. But then our guide heard telltale warning calls by monkeys, and our driver hurried off in search of the source of them. And then there it was, strolling right past our canter. Like several of them, it was fitted with a radio collar to help with their research. Most of the group we were travelling with didn't get to see a tiger, only the few of us in our canter, so we were very fortunate. Once we'd had a good look at the tiger, our driver alerted others, but by the time they arrived, the tiger had disappeared off into the long grass. From Ranthambore, we drove northwest to Jaipur and began in the city centre with a tour of the palace. There are no prizes for guessing why Jaipur is popularly known as the Pink City. The palace buildings and other tourist sites are well maintained and very grand, but almost everywhere else in the city was looking very dilapidated. You could tell that it had once looked very impressive, but it's now rather sad looking. Jantar is a fascinating collection of architectural astronomical instruments, used for measuring time and tracking planets and stars. The instruments include the world's largest sundial, which can be used to tell the time to an accuracy of 2 seconds. Amber is a town a few miles from Jaipur, and its fort is one of the main attractions of the area. Like the fort in Agra, it's huge, like a complete city. We were taken up to the fort in jeeps. Another popular way is by elephant, but there have been a number of accidents recently, including when 2 tourists were injured the day before we went there, so most tour companies have stopped using them. They certainly add to the atmosphere of the place, though. Although the Taj Mahal is certainly the most spectacular individual building, for me the Amber Fort was the most interesting and enjoyable site we visited. There's a tremendous variety of styles of buildings and decoration. As well as the many well-preserved buildings with very intricate decorative panels, there are large areas of the fort that have not been maintained or restored. Returning to the centre of Jaipur, we stopped at this magnificent facade with 953 small windows, built in 1799 to allow royal ladies to observe everyday street life without being seen. We had a free afternoon, and Margaret and I wandered around Jaipur on our own for a couple of hours. We were pleasantly surprised to find that, once away from the main tourist areas, we weren't bothered much by hawkers or beggars. We took a tuk-tuk back to our hotel. Our next and final stop was Mandawa, a small town in rural Rajasthan, which was on the Silk Road, the main trading route between Europe and China. We stayed in Mandawa Castle, now converted into a very characterful hotel. Mandawa has several mansions, known as Havelis, that are wonderfully decorated in frescoes. The wealthy traders have long since moved elsewhere, and while some parts of the Havelis are well preserved, most are now pretty sad looking. The sights and sounds of everyday India are equally as fascinating as the grand old buildings. In the cities, the overwhelming impression is of crowds, constant traffic horns, and rubbish strewn everywhere. Cows roam the streets and evidently return each evening to their keepers. Cattle aren't the only animals you see in the streets. Camels are quite a common sight. India is certainly a fascinating country. We enjoyed our trip and are glad we went, but we won't be rushing back.